Hey, what's up guys, it's Bakes here and thank you for joining me for this episode of my Top 10 series. And today's episode, because we're moving now into the new year 2024, I thought I'd put a list together of my 10 most anticipated horror movies for 2024. This was a super hard list to put together. There are so many movies that I'm looking forward to next year. Fingers crossed that 2024 is a better year for horror movies than 2023. Just in my opinion, I thought 2023 was kind of a little bit shaky, so hoping 2024 delivers a few more better ones. But with that being said, I've actually also got a few honourable mentions that I want to do. Normally when I do a list, I don't like to include honourable mentions, but I thought because the ones that I am going to bring up didn't make the list because of particular circumstances and everything like that. I thought I'd just put together at least 3 honourable mentions for this list. So without any delay, as I said, this list is pretty self-explanatory. 10 of my most anticipated horror movies coming out in the year 2024. So like I said there in my introduction, before I get into my actual top 10 list, I'm going to go through a few honourable mentions. I've got 3 here, and it's in no particular order. So the first one I have here is a film called Never Let Go, which is meant to be directed by Alexandre Aja, who is a really cool director. He's a French filmmaker. The French movies that he's done, he did a little film called High Tension, which is a great movie. I'm sure you guys would know it. He did another French movie called Oxygen, I believe. It was on Netflix a couple of years ago. I didn't actually check that one out. But the American movies that he's done, which more people would probably know, he did the Hills Have Eyes remake. He did that killer alligator movie Crawl. There's a few other ones he did as well. He did this fantasy horror movie with Daniel Radcliffe in it. It was called Horns. That was also really cool. But this movie is meant to be starring Halle Berry. She plays a mother of 2 twin boys, and she's been protecting them from this evil for a few years, but after some more time passes, the boys start to wonder, is the evil actually there, or is it all imaginary? And I think that's a pretty cool plot, but I'm mainly sold on the fact that it's Alexandre Aja. I think he's a really cool director, and he sort of has this style that has this edge to it that I really like with his movies, so I'm sort of sold on that fact. The reason why it didn't make my top 10 list is the fact I only heard about this movie maybe a day or 2 ago, so I'm not sure if it's quite up there with my most anticipated when I've only just heard about it, and I don't honestly know too much more than what I've told you. So that's the first of my honourable mentions. The second is the untitled 4th Jordan Peele movie. Man, I love Jordan Peele. I've said it so many times on my channel before. Some people just have a connection to directors and they just love everything they do, and that seems to be Jordan Peele for me. I love everything that he's done so far in his short career, but I'm super excited about this 4th movie. But the only reason it's not on my top 10 list of most anticipated is we know nothing about this movie. As I said, we don't know a title, we don't know any of the plot details, we have no cast, nothing, so I thought it would be a little bit unfair to include it in my actual top 10. Now the last one here is Guillermo del Toro's adaptation of Frankenstein. Guillermo del Toro is the perfect person to adapt a classic Universal horror movie monster film. He did The Shape of Water, which is like the closest thing we've got to a remake of The Creature of the Black Lagoon. Obviously it's quite different, but it's also got a few of the same beats as well, obviously. But also the cast, it's got Andrew Garfield as the Doctor, Oscar Isaacs as the monster, Mia Goth as the bride. Like, I'm fucking sold on that as well. If I actually had this on my top 10 list, it would have been so high up in my most anticipated. The only reason it's not on my top 10 list is I've been hearing about this movie being made for years. For years and years and years, and I've had no movement. Like, the most recent update that we've got is that list of cast: Andrew Garfield, Oscar Isaac, Mia Goth. And the most recent thing other than that I've heard is that it's actually meant to have a 2025 release date. I'm not too sure when in 2025, but I kind of have my fingers crossed maybe earlier in 2024. Not too sure, but I thought I might as well include it as a honourable mention. So now starting off my list for my actual top 10 most anticipated horror movies for 2024, coming in at my number 10 is The Crow remake. Now, a lot of people, especially in the horror community, have a problem with remakes. They say there's just too many horror remakes coming out nowadays, not enough original films. And I don't necessarily have a problem with remakes. It's more so unnecessary remakes. Think the Pet Sematary remake, the Omen remake, the Psycho remake. Those are remakes that I feel like are unnecessary due to the fact of either the OG, maybe it's a little bit old but still holds up, Pet Sematary as my example there, or they remake a film exactly the same, like almost shot for shot, but it's just worse, my examples there being The Omen and Psycho. But sometimes there's a particular movie that you come across that just screams, I need a remake. And I first had that feeling with the OG 90s It. Watching the 90s version of It, that movie, I was like, yeah, it's good. It's still got plenty of things that I like about it, but it's in need of a remake, and, they did that in 2017. But from there, the first time that I saw The Crow, another film that I thought would be great for a remake. The idea of the movie is great, this vigilante coming back from the dead to seek revenge. He's got this badass design and look, and his personality is really edgy and cool as well. I believe Bill Skarsgård is meant to play the Crow in this movie, which I think is a great choice. It's very different to Brandon Lee, who played the Crow in the original movie, and we all know the story of what happened on set there, but I won't get into that. He's not quite the same body type and everything that what Brandon Lee was, Bill Skarsgård, but I think he's got a cool, unique look, and I think he's got the acting chops to do it as well. I really feel like they could do a less cheesy 90s gothic comic book look than what the original film has, which kind of sounds weird because I actually like that look of the original Crow movie, but I feel like they could modernize it and, make it feel a little less old and dated. But coming in at my number 10 is the Crow remake. Coming in at my number 9 is a film called Shelby Oaks. This is the movie that is meant to be directed by YouTuber Chris Stuckman. If you don't know who Chris Stuckman is, you've probably been living under a rock. He's a big YouTube movie reviewer, and he's been doing it for years. And a lot of people are already sort of kind of hating on this movie, calling it cringe because a YouTuber is directing the movie, a content creator, or whatever word you want to use for what he does on the internet. And Chris has always said in his videos he's a filmmaker first. It's always what he's wanted to be, and YouTube is kind of his side thing because he enjoys talking about movies. And I think that's very fair because, like, the way I think of doing YouTube on my channel, this is, to me, my hobby. This isn't what I want to do for the rest of my life. I just like talking about movies, and I care about movies, and I like sharing it with people. It doesn't mean that YouTube is my thing and what I want to be known for. And it's the same thing to him, it's unfair to be like, oh, he can't make a movie because he started on YouTube first. I think that's stupid. To me, he's shown a lot of knowledge of movies, in particular horror, and, most important, he cares. He seems to really care about what it takes to make a movie, and he wants to put in all that he can, which I feel like is also really important. And I feel like there are a lot of directors in Hollywood, and they're just there for the paycheck and they don't really care about what they're making, but I feel like Chris would really care. Now, to be completely honest, from what I've heard of the plot and things that I've seen, there's nothing there that really draws me in, if I'm being completely honest. I don't really feel like it's nothing particularly special, but I'm happy to be surprised. I'm sort of just hoping that this movie goes alright. Chris has also spoken about, some scripts that he's worked on in the past, and he's sort of having trouble getting them picked up because they're different, but I love different movies. I'm just sort of hoping this movie has success. I've sort of got my fingers crossed for that, and I guess with that comes the anticipation. So coming in at my number 9 is the film Shelby Oaks. Coming in at my number 8 spot is a movie called Longlegs, which is meant to be directed by Oz Perkins. If you're not familiar with Osgood Perkins, he is the son of the great Anthony Perkins, most well known for playing Norman Bates in the Psycho franchise. But Oz Perkins has also really made a name for himself as a horror director. His most successful movie in the horror community would probably be The Blackcoat's Daughter, otherwise known as February. His most mainstream movie that he done was Gretel and Hansel, and even though that movie wasn't a smash hit, as I said, he's really proven himself as a capable director, and his movies sort of have this fever dream feel, not to the point where it's trippy or psychedelic, but kind of like this weird feel to it. And but this one could play a little bit more straightforward, with a slight trance sort of edge to it. You know, the plot for this movie is a young female FBI agent played by Micah Monroe is assigned to this project to track down this serial killer named Longlegs, played by Nicolas Cage. And just that alone, I feel like it could be like a dark, twisted fever dream trance version of Silence of the Lambs, with this whole young female FBI agent and older, one step ahead killer sort of thing playing mind games and cat and mouse. Now, don't get my words twisted. That's not me saying that this is going to be the next Silence of the Lambs, or it's going to be like Silence of the Lambs. I just sort of feel like off the plot, you know, there are some similarities there. You know, Silence of the Lambs is a great movie. I'm not sure if it can top that, but as I said, just on that alone, I feel like there are a lot of elements that could make this, you know, feel like a really cool and unique movie. And as I said, I feel like Osgood Perkins, he's proven himself as a director, that he's capable. As I say, we've got talent in Nicolas Cage and Micah Monroe. She's in lots of cool stuff as well. I feel like she's sort of underrated as an actress doing horror. You know, she's done It Follows and Villains, and you know, there's so much other stuff that she's done as well. Yeah, I feel like this is a really cool movie to keep your eyes out for. So my number 8 is Longlegs. The movie coming in at my number 7 is one that I feel like is kind of slept on. I haven't heard a lot of people talk about this one at all. And to be fair, I heard about this one long ago, and for the longest time I wasn't too sure what, you know, the go was with this movie. But coming in at my number 7 is Wolf Creek 3. Now, the last thing that I have heard is that there's kind of confirmation that it's meant to be coming out in 2024, and I could be eating my words. You know, I might get pushed back to 2025, or it just might get cancelled altogether. As I said, I haven't heard too much recently, but I've really got my fingers crossed for Wolf Creek 3 because I've been super keen and waiting on Wolf Creek 3 for ages. I love the first Wolf Creek movie. I love the dark, brutal grittiness of it. And even though the second movie sort of goes with a different approach, it's a bit more light-hearted and fun, and it turns into a bit more of an adventure at some points. I do like that movie as well. My guess is that it's going to follow the vibe of the second movie. Now, I have no backing to my reasoning there. It's just sort of a hunch that I've been going with. And don't get me wrong, the second movie still has its brutal moments, but you know, the first movie is just so dark and gritty and so realistic as well. It's also the first movie of the Wolf Creek films not directed by Greg McLean. I almost called him Jeff. Greg McLean. This movie is going to be directed by Rachel Wiggins, who I looked her up and I wasn't familiar with too much of her work. She did a short in the film Scare Package 2, which I'm not familiar with that film either. But either way, I'm itching for more Wolf Creek, as I said. More Mick Taylor, and there is confirmation that John Jarrett is meant to be returning as Mick Taylor. So, as I said, fingers crossed for this movie. I really hope that we see it. And my number 7 is Wolf Creek 3. Coming in at my number 6 is a film called Baghead. Now, like I mentioned before with Shelby Oaks, just off the plot of this movie alone, I'm not completely sold yet. I am a little bit more sold than Shelby Oaks as my comparison, but the fact that I've heard comments saying that this movie is meant to have very similar feels to 2022's Barbarian is what really gets me, because Barbarian was a movie that I loved. It completely caught me off guard. I heard good things about Barbarian, but when I went and watched it, if you've seen that movie, as I said, Barbarian from 2022, that movie was so quirky and it was such a trip, and if any of it feels similar to that movie, I'm sure I'm going to be sold. Yeah, Barbarian was so fucking crazy. I said this in my kind of review for that movie, you know, if you left halfway through the movie to go toilet or, you know, get more snacks or whatever and came back to the theater, you would swear you're watching a completely different film. But either way, Off the plot, there are still some points that I'm kind of sold on, and I do kind of like to hear, a whole shape shifting creature, and the fact that its name is Baghead, I think is kind of fun. Like I said, if it has the fun, the scares, the creepiness, the quirkiness, and the cool monster design that Barbarian had, I can't wait for this movie. So coming in at my number 6 is Baghead. Now, my number 5 is not a straight up horror movie, but I'm including it anyway. My number 5 is Beetlejuice 2. Now, this is a weird place to start, but I'm slightly worried about this movie. I feel like it could come across as a little bit gimmicky, feel like it's going to pander to the Hot Topic universe of people, or if you live in Australia, like the Zing group of people that just like Tim Burton merchandise and stuff. I feel like it could pander to that sort of crowd. I watched the first season of Wednesday on Netflix, and it was fine. It was just not really my thing. When season 2 comes out, I probably won't watch it unless I hear really good things about it. But I am kind of worried that it will have those sort of feels that were in Wednesday. And I know Tim Burton didn't direct, the whole of Wednesday, and he's directing this movie, but I'm still kind of nervous on that fact. But if it can capture the charm and the feel of the OG, this movie is gonna fucking rock, because I love Beetlejuice. It's impossible to not love the original Beetlejuice. It's just so fun, quirky, spooky, charming. The world and lore that it's built is just incredible, and there's constant eye candy in the original Beetlejuice. Just everything you look at is just so breathtaking and really cool, and it's also really funny, the OG Beetlejuice. I also really hope that Beetlejuice 2 has balls, and I don't want a watered down version of Beetlejuice, like the character himself. I want those creepy moments too from the original movie, like, when she peels off her face when she's hanging in the wardrobe, and, they mold their heads into creatures. I want that as well. Going back to Beetlejuice as a character, I want him still to be foul-mouthed, and, I still want him to be a pervert, which I'm worried they won't go that route because, we're in 2024 now. But yeah, I want him to swear, the house down. I want him still peeking up dresses. I love that version of Beetlejuice. I want this movie to feel like 80s PG. Like, 80s PG was something different. Like, Beetlejuice, the original, is rated PG, and he says nice fucking model while squeezing his balls. I need that in Beetlejuice too. I'm not going to have it any other way. Michael Keaton is returning as Beetlejuice, and, I think he does a great job as that character in the OG, and I'm sure he'll deliver again. Winona Ryder is back. A member that I was surprised was coming back was Catherine O'Hara. I just feel like I haven't seen her in anything since Beetlejuice or Home Alone or something like that. It just feels like I haven't seen her face in forever. And I feel like it will be kind of weird. I wonder how they're going to explain how, the rest of the cast from the original movie, aren't coming back. I'm pretty sure, I forget their names, the two main characters from the OG Beetlejuice. Like, isn't there like a rule in the book where they can't leave the house for like 150 years? Like, obviously not that much time has passed, but, they're not Alec Baldwin and I forget the Gina Davis. They're not listed as cast members in this movie, so I wonder how they'll explain that away. But they also have Willem Dafoe and Jenna Ortega as new additions, and I love that. So there's a lot that I'm really hopeful for this movie as well. As I said, if it's anything like the original, and they can go with a fresh story and everything, but as long as it can capture that vibe, I'm fucking sold. So my number 5 is Beetlejuice 2. Coming in at my number 4 is a movie that I'm sure is going to be much higher on other people's lists of most anticipated horror movies for the coming year, but here I have Terrifier 3. Now, I've said this on my channel before because I've done reviews for both Terrifier 1 and 2, that both 1 and 2 are movies that I like, but I don't love. Now, I don't want anyone to twist my words, because there are more things that I like about Terrifier 1 and 2 than don't like. It's just not quite movies that I'm on the level of love for yet. I just really like them. I don't love them. The first movie is weird to say, but it's kind of underrated just because the second film was the one to blow up and take the world by storm. And the second film is the better of the two movies. But to me, it's just a little bit too long, and they try to give Art some backstory way too late in the movie's runtime, and by then I'm already kind of worn out and whatever. However, both movies do something very rare, and that's bring fun to disturbing and gore-heavy horror movies that people seem to think can't go hand in hand. Yes, you can have fun, with a movie that has a scene of a girl being skinned alive. That is perfectly okay. And that's what they deliver with. They gave us a terrifying slasher icon in Art the Clown. I think Art the Clown is genuinely creepy and a really fun character as well. There's this whole story that's gone out with Terrifier 3 where director David Leone was approached by big studios about, working together for Terrifier 3. And, he handed them the script and they were like, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. And a lot of people were worried that Damien Leone was going to sell out. But he went, no, I have a vision for this movie, and he took the script back and he's going to work on it himself. So I really like that he's done that as well. And having this movie set on Christmas, which, a teaser trailer has come out and posters and everything that the movie is going to be set on Christmas, I think that's just really fucking cool. So as I said, even though I'm not completely at the level of love for the first two Terrifier movies, I really think that this can be a really cool modern horror trilogy. So really keen to see what Art delivers next for the Terrifier trilogy. Coming in at my number 3 is Smile 2. Now this one kind of caught me off guard by how much I'm actually anticipating this movie. Now don't get me wrong, I knew I was going to have it on this list of my most anticipated horror movies for 2024, but I didn't know I was going to have it this high. Just the more I thought back on Smile and, thinking forward to the potential of what Smile 2 could be, it just kept moving up and up this list. Smile was possibly the biggest surprise of 2022 in my opinion. My thoughts of what I thought Smile was going to be as I went into it, my expectations was something along the lines of Blumhouse's Truth or Dare that came out a few years beforehand, and that movie was just terrible, super cringe and everything. That was kind of where my expectations were for Smile, and I actually heard a few people say that it was okay, as first people started to go see the movie, but, I wasn't completely sold. So much so, I was actually planning on not going to the cinemas to watch it, and, if I missed out on it, too bad. My favourite time to go to the cinema to watch a movie is on a weekday in the morning, because that's when all the annoying teens are at school, people are at work, and I can just watch a movie in peace. I know, fuck me for being a fucking introvert, but I like to watch my movies in silence, unless, the movie warrants, a bit of cheering or screams or laughter or whatever. I'm not going to get into it. But I went and watched Smile on a weekend at prime time, like midday, or like, late afternoon, sorry. Like, I knew it was going to be busy, but I had some time to kill. I think I was, like, waiting for a certain amount of time to pass for something, and I was like, Smile's on. I might as well go and see if I can have my time occupied for, however long this movie's going to go for. And the cinema experience was so fucking bad. I actually made a video on my channel about how bad that cinema experience was with the audience around me. If I can remember to do it, I'll link it in the description below, but either way, it's up on my channel. But even with that being said, I fucking loved Smile. I thought it was great, and I had a great time. The movie genuinely scared me, which I think too many horror content creators or people in the horror community or whatever are too scared to admit when a movie genuinely scared them. I don't know, they're too scared to look like a pussy or whatever, but Smile genuinely fucking scared me. It was the scariest movie of 2022 in my opinion, at least. And though I'm satisfied with how that first movie ended, I do also feel like there's room to explore the lore and the background, and I feel like there's more to be covered. If you're unfamiliar with Smile, it's pretty much like an American version of a Japanese curse movie. Like, think of a film like The Ring or The Grudge, those Japanese movies where, a character gets cursed with something. It's pretty much that, but the American version of it. And with an idea like that, I feel like there is so much you can work with and, build off that structure that warrants a sequel. So, as I said, I feel like I'd like to see a little bit more lore explained. I'd like to have as much fun, and fuck me, just scare me again. I want to feel that scared again. So, yeah, as I said, too many horror, people in the community and whatever, they're too scared to admit, when a movie scared them. And I get it because, you become a little bit desensitized over time. Like, I get less scared, but Smile scared me, so I want Smile 2 to do the same. So, coming in at my number 3 is Smile 2. Coming in at my number 2 is director Robert Eggers' Nosferatu. Now, Robert Eggers is a director that, in my opinion, has gone 3 from 3. My favourite movie of his is The Witch, but then also The Lighthouse is really good, and The Northman, even though not straight up horror, more action, fantasy. That movie was also really good. So I have full trust in him as a director, and I feel like this is the perfect movie to match his sort of style as a director as well. And another film that was screaming for a remake, like the original Nosferatu. I could have the year wrong here, but I think it came out in 1922. There was that remake with Klaus Kinski as well, but that one's also pretty old. So I would love a remake for Nosferatu, and that's what we're getting. Now, news for this movie has been around for an extremely long time as well, like some of the previous mentioned movies that I spoke about before. But unlike a movie like Frankenstein, for example, that I had to put down as an honourable mention, we've actually had updates on this movie, and, we've had little snippets and pictures on set, so we know that this movie's actually, got people working on it, and it's, moving forward. I heard originally Anya Taylor-Joy was meant to be in this movie, and Harry Styles, he was also originally involved. They left, and now Lily Rose Depp and Bill Skarsgård again is in this movie. I guess Bill Skarsgård has a pretty busy year. But I like our cast. I like Eggers behind the camera. As I said, if you're not too familiar with the story of Nosferatu, there's a lot to build on there. It's a really cool blueprint of a story that I'm sure Robert Eggers will put his own little spins and twists on as well. But I'm super excited for this movie. So my number 2 is Nosferatu. And coming in for my number 1 as my most anticipated horror movie for 2024 is one that's not too original, because I've actually heard a lot of people say that this is also their most anticipated horror movie. But here I have director Ty West's third installment in the X trilogy, being Maxine. The final chapter, as I said, by director Ty West in the X trilogy, starring Mia Goth again. I loved X, just a simple throwback to late 70s, early 80s slashers, which didn't do anything out of left field, didn't need to do anything fancy, it just did the job, made a fun throwback, gory slasher. And then later in 2022, they released the prequel, being Pearl, which was a totally different ballgame, Technicolor, dreamlike, Wizard of Oz sort of feel, a throwback to the golden age of cinema, taking place in 1918, if I remember right, somewhere around there. A character study slasher. It was just so fucking good, and it's a movie that's somehow grown on me because I loved it the first time I saw it, and every time I've seen it since, it's just gone up. I love both Pearl and X, and now Maxine to cap it off, which I believe is meant to be set in the 80s, in either New York City or LA, something like that. But hearing that, I hope they go with a dirty, gross, grimy city feel, similar to a movie like 1980's Maniac or 82's New York Ripper. I hope they go with like a grimy New York City, not like a, hey, how great is this city? I want it to feel dirty and gross, and that would just be great. I also heard a rumor that this movie is going to be a Jello or inspired by a Jello, and I feel like that would perfectly fit with the setting, and again, also if they made the city really grimy as well, because sometimes Jellos go into that grimier territory, and I also feel like it would be a perfect fit. As I said, Pearl was like a dream-like character study, and then X was more just a straight-up slasher. And then, this movie could be a Jello. I think, all of them being, a sort of different subgenre in horror, mixed with slashers. Perfect. I can't wait, if it's anything like X or Pearl. This could be, honestly, one of the greatest modern trilogies, hands down, like without a doubt. So I don't know what else I want to say about Maxine. I'm just super pumped for it. So coming in as my number one is director Ty West, Maxine. So there we go, guys, my list of my 10 most anticipated horror movies for 2024. Now, I just want to also put out there, guys, if I got any information about the plots or who's working on the movies or just any of those small details wrong, don't fucking come at me, just let me know in the comments. A lot of this stuff is just things that I've been hearing and picking up on, and I was actually reading a lot off notes in this video. Normally when I'm doing my random horror reviews or something, I have small notes and I just glance down at them whenever I need it, but most of it's off the top of my head. This one was majority notes. You probably saw my eyes going down a lot, so if I got some of the information wrong or anything like that, don't come at me. But also, guys, if you are new to my channel or if you have been here before but just forgotten, I get very busy in the month of January. I do a lot of recaps for the year prior, both for my horror part of this channel and my music part. So I'll be doing like my favorite albums of the year, favorite movies of the year, favorite reviews that I've done, favorite songs, lists looking back at the year of 2023. So all that's still to come this January. I'm going to be very busy recording those videos, and I'm still trying to squeeze in a few movies that I haven't got a chance to watch, through 2023 before I put my final list together. But thank you guys for watching this video, and thank you if you're still sticking around. I'd love to hear some of your favorite horror movies that you're looking forward to, coming in 2024, or maybe if they're coming later, just still let me know in the comments, guys. Or if you have any other thoughts on any of the movies I brought up, feel free to let me know in the comments again, guys. But thank you for joining me for this video. As I said, keep your eyes out for more content coming pretty soon. I presume I'm going to have a new video, maybe every 5th or 6th day, something like that. But yeah, thank you again for joining me, guys, and I'll see you for another video soon. Peace.